It's your space weather. Looking at the sun on 171 angstroms. An active region begins to get into the Earth-facing region. No sunspots. And the coronal hole wind stream is subsiding. And here's your magnetic field at 304 angstroms. You can see the coronal hole is rotating out in this direction. And we can now see the complexity of the field associated with this active region, as they are no longer masked by the coronal hole. And the heliospheric current sheet has been crossed, as predicted, and of course, sparked some geomagnetic storms yesterday. Let's change the order of our value-added service. Here's your AccuWeather.com US Doppler radar. The atmospheric river that brought all that rain to the East Coast is now finally moving off into the Atlantic. And we've got snow in various places, such as Michigan, some Minnesota, some Texas. Snowing in Texas, as well as New Mexico, Montana, some Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. Moving on, let's look at the data on spaceweathernews.com. Another tiny X-ray flux just occurred. Still not high enough to reach the B-class flare, undoubtedly from that active region. You can see an ongoing signal. That's the coronal hole, which is still magnetically connected and has indeed brought a 7+ magnitude earthquake to the Philippines. You can see the solar wind density has dropped way down, maybe about 3 protons per cubic centimeter. And the solar wind speed is still very high, around, I'll say 580 kilometers per second. Although it looks like it is dropping off, and we do expect it to subside throughout the day today. Here's your magnetometer spikes. This is the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet. And this is the connection to the new region, the new plasma sheet, and so on. Prediction here is that this is going to not be as high as it was yesterday. I'll say around this area, below 150 nanotesla. KP index has dropped back down to 3. Here's your Cygnets forecast. Let that play through one time. Electron flux is set to dip again. We will not experience as low levels as we saw yesterday, but this will drop off again today, at least until that solar wind speed drops down, which we are expecting it to do. Some minor charging hazards there for satellites. And you can see the F2 layer is pretty charged and pretty anomalous right now. In fact, I don't even think that's the right data. There we go. That looks better. So the F2 layer is quite discharged right now. And there's going to be a fairly big charge disparity in this area as the sun moves to the west. Not super anomalous. Let's go back and recap the rest of that data here in case we missed anything. All right, it looks like the magnetic connection is starting to dissipate. And this magnetometer is going to be heading back up momentarily. It looks like there's actually quite a lot of electrons. Something to keep an eye on there. And there's your aurora forecast. The auroras are pretty serious, but they are dissipating, as is the solar wind. Now let's look at the geospace. Here are your magnetosphere models. First, looking at the velocity. And you can see the highest velocity is actually down here. Another indication that the heliospheric current sheet is no longer in this region, but in fact down in this region. Let's look at the density. Again, indications that the plasma is coming in from this sort of an orientation, not this sort of an orientation, as predicted. And here's the pressure. We'll let that play through before we head on to the Gong 2. That's the Global Oscillation Network, by the way. We will be leaving links below to all of the different sites that we look at. Let's look at the line of sight field plot real quick. This will give you some idea of how easy these images are to load. They don't require a lot of bandwidth, but they are spectacular. You can see those fields associated with the polar North Pole are now being obscured by the incoming blue-colored field there. And you can see also the way that this active region is holding back the field. Let's look at the ecliptic plot. And this one should actually reflect the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet now, or end up right at the edge. Yep. You can actually see that sputter and then kind of snap through. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to what's going on down here, as that is the source for what's going on up here. Just like your weather. Great data there. Moving on. Earthquake update. We have a 7.0 that occurred in the Philippines. Apparently the tsunami threat has been lifted. No apparent tsunami associated with that one. Looks like a perfect foreshock there in the Philippines. Another 590-kilometer deep quake at Fiji, as the action there just doesn't seem to stop. And also in the last hour or so, 5.1 in Indonesia. Let's look at global magnetic perturbations. A lot of people are concerned about a pole flip, and we're one of them. One of the channels that's concerned about a pole flip, that is. This geospace model, courtesy of the University of Michigan Geospace Department. See some heavy field density down here and some heavy field density up here. Let that play through one more time in its entirety. Again, the solar wind's going to subside a bit throughout the day today, and this activity should subside a bit also. The good news is the planet crossed the heliospheric current sheet, and there was no pole flip. Next, let's just set your attention to something totally outside the solar system. Cygnus X3, one of the brightest stars in the sky, in fact, the brightest single object visible to the human eye located in the constellation Cygnus, star known as Deneb, Cygnus X3, one of the weirdest and most consistent cosmic ray sources. I just bring your attention to this fact that the highest levels ever measured from there were in 2009. We are nearly at those levels now with these transients. Keep in mind this is being monitored constantly. Activity right now is actually very low. And typically with this object, very low activity is the predecessor to very high activity. Links will be left in the description. Next, let's look at the total electron content over North America. Now you see this fountaining over Hawaii. This is a normal thing. We see that basically every day. But I'd like to draw your attention to this. Look at the odd epicenter style electron event in the northwest of the US. I guess that's southern Canada, near the Canada-Montana border, near Banff National Park and so on. So that's, never seen that before. Let that play one more time. The electrons just dimmed right out of that area. Keep in mind the dark blue is the low count and the lighter colors is the higher count. Next, let's have a look at the GOES X-ray imager. Assuming that X-ray flux came out of the active region now facing the Earth. See a little bit of static coming through there. Nothing too special. Next, just some basic atmospheric physics here. This is a video that we will also link in the description. This is from Suspicious Observers. The video is about the effect on electric current and olivine. I'll play a clip here. Just to set this up for you, this is the anode right here. The current is going to go through the water and into the cathode plate, which is the plate on which the water is sitting. Notice the effects that the electric current has on the water. Look a little bit like cloud formations or granules on the sun, does it? Not a coincidence. Also, here's some olivine particles that have been charged up. They're being discharged by that rod there you see in the foreground. And you can see what happens. This is one of the many minerals that is associated with earthquake-prone regions. Anyway, links to the video below. Note the way electricity affects your planet. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks subscribers. Please don't forget to press that like button and to subscribe if you have not already done so. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't think it's happening this year. Time is running out. However, we will be making the videos regardless. Got some filament activity on the sun here. We'll let it play through. Thanks again. Best wishes. And remember, on your way home, if you're driving, don't drink. And if you drink, don't drive. Seriously, do yourself and me a favor. Don't drive.